Okay. Hi, Steve. Thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure to have you in this community and to share your knowledge and your expertise within the world of hypnotism. So I have been hypnotized a couple of times. It was a great experience. So tell us more. Tell us about you, how you get to do what you do, and know the benefits. Let's hear all about it.
Certainly. Well, thanks for inviting me along, Amy. It's a pleasure to be here. So yeah, I mean, I'm Steve Woods, and I am a hypnotist. I suppose the main question I get asked is, how on earth do you get into hypnosis? And I usually joke and say, well, it's something I wanted to do when I was at school, but that's not really true. So I think as most people who get into doing some sort of therapy, it's because there's been a connection and impact in that world of therapeutic side of things. And for me, it was seeing a stage hypnotist probably about 35 years ago now. A group of us were in retail, and we saw a stage hypnotist, and we bought some self-hypnosis tapes off of the guy. And I've never been able to find out who it was, because it was one of the things you sort of did at the time and then went off, and it's so long before there was many digital records. But yeah, it was in Doncaster in the mid-80s, it would have been, in actual fact. So saw the stage hypnotist, got some tapes which would be called Resilience now, really. It was sort of Get Up and Go or something like that. And it made a difference. And I got some books. I studied a few different sides of things. Didn't do any more other than playing around with it until nearly 20 years ago now, and then made the decision one Friday to do it properly. And by the Sunday, I'd
One
spent
Friday.
one Friday afternoon. I think I wasn't particularly in a good place in the day job at that point, and thought, I know I should do this hypnosis thing a bit more seriously. Yeah. And spent a few £1,000s, enrolled on a course. By the Sunday, I was ready to go, and went down to Devon for a couple of weeks residential down there. A few months later, I'd started that journey from there. I only took it full time 7 years ago now, and my journey has been very much therapeutic. More recently, more about helping people perform better, which still includes therapy, really, but it's a little bit more future paced. A lot of sports work and business work and things like that that I do now.
Okay, amazing. That sounds like such that moment you decide on a Friday that enough's enough. This is your calling in life, and you need to go down that path. That sounds like a great Friday to make that decision and to change your life around. So with hypnotherapy then, because I have had it a couple of times, and I it's, for me, it was a very I don't know, like a spiritual happening to me. I went very deep within myself, and uncovered things that I hadn't thought about in a long time. So are there different levels of hypnotherapy, or how does it work? How do you get to that point?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So I suppose it's worth saying, first of all, that I believe everybody can be hypnotized. Some people take longer than others, but I believe everyone can get into that state. Some trainings, though, do promote the fact that some people are not hypnotizable.
Okay.
The claim is there's about 5% of the population are somnambulists, they're sleepwalkers, and they'll go into hypnosis really quickly, really easily, even if they've never done it before. So I believe everybody can, but I think it's one of those things you need to learn. And some people, go really deep into it. But actually, hypnosis to me is a focus. It's a really high focus of whatever it is that you're working on, and that might be that really your spiritual experience. It might be just able to quieten the mind and go into your mind, into yourself, and actually look at things that maybe you're looking to change or to release. Or it could be visualizing what success looks like and feels like, and getting all of those senses firing, which is where I suppose come into it more on the performance side, taking somebody from where they are now and going, right, where do you want to be? What does it look like? What does it feel like, taste like, smell like? But it is a level of focus. People definitely get better at being hypnotized the more they do it as well.
Okay.
But some people do absolutely go whoosh. In my old mentor's words, they go like a sack of spuds, whatever that means.
So are some people better at being hypnotized? So some people just are naturally easier to do. Other people just take a bit more time, because I guess it's that part of your mind where you sort of struggle to switch off in a way, or you're thinking about what you're having for dinner, or there's these thoughts that keep popping in. So are some people, I guess, more natural not to be able to do that?
Well, actually, it's okay for people to do that. And I think that's something I've learned over the years, that it's not fragile. It's not a fragile process. And I get quite a lot of people coming to me because I specialize a lot with golf. People have often tried to do hypnosis for that sport, for golf or something else, and they've not had very good results, but for whatever reason. So I get quite a lot. I probably get, I don't know, I probably get a third of the clients that come to me have tried to do it elsewhere. And I describe it to them and say, well, actually, it's okay to have those thoughts. It's okay. I mean, they've just finished, they're resurfacing the road outside. So if I was doing some hypnosis today, I was doing some this morning, and I said, yeah, you may well be aware of those sounds. That's okay. It's okay to have those stray thoughts. It's okay to fidget and move around. And as long as you know that, actually, you're not sitting there questioning it. Because otherwise, you are sitting there going, why am I thinking about what I'm having for a tea? Why am I thinking
That's it.
about that
It's so
email I've
hard
got to
not to
send?
do
Yeah.
it, isn't it? That's one thing I
But
did find.
yeah, but it's okay to do that.
Okay.
But yeah, if you sit there thinking, oh, I can't be hypnotized because I'm thinking about those things, then actually you won't get any results, because as far as you're concerned, you're not hypnotized, even though you might be. You might be in that wonderful state. You might be in that high focus, subconscious part of your mind. But if you believe you're not, why would you get any results? So yeah, it's complex, but I think it can also be viewed very simply and say that's okay. You can hypnotize standing up, but most people would probably feel a bit cheated if I said, right, okay, we're going to do all this stuff. Now stand up, I'm going to hypnotize you.
Yeah.
Even though I know that can be, we don't expect that. We expect that nice, relaxed
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah, but I have seen it where they can literally just do a couple of things and that's it. You're under, whatever it is, click your fingers.
Yes, it's usually pre-prepared. It's not quite that easy to walk up to
Okay.
somebody and do that. But yeah,
Yeah, quite worrying otherwise.
yeah,
Person.
absolutely, yeah.
Okay. So it is, I guess, down to the power of your mind, isn't it? When you have to fully invest in this stuff and you have to believe in it. Otherwise, you're not really going to go very far. And I guess that's where I see the correlation with health anxiety. If you don't believe in your body's capabilities in a good way, then it's very difficult to move any further along. If you're constantly thinking about that negative, then and that where are you going to end up? You're going to go back to that negative point. So our minds are so massively powerful, and
Yeah.
it's learning how to do that.
Yeah,
So
and we're not taught anything, are we? We're never taught that actually we can change our mind. We just, I think in a way we just taught you this is the way we think, this is the way we feel, and that's our lot in life.
yeah, absolutely. But to stop and question it and go, actually, is there more? Is that there's so much more capability within us that we don't use, that we're not even aware of.
Yeah, yeah,
So
no, absolutely. People use hypnosis. I've not done that with myself with anybody, but people use hypnosis to have surgery now. If they're maybe allergic to an anaesthetic, people have actually completely anaesthetized or local anaesthetic. A friend of mine does his own dental hypnosis. When he goes on his dental work, much to the amusement of his dentist, I think the first time. But there's glove anesthesia, so you can have a hypnotic suggestion put in hypnosis, where when I do this thing, when I activate my glove anesthesia, I can rub my finger around my gum and it will numb my gum and I can have the dental work. So, I mean, it's pretty impressive stuff when you start to get into things like that.
wow, that just makes you wince just thinking about it, doesn't it?
So I've never done that. I've done I have done pain relief work for people where we've taken away unnecessary pain. You've got to be a bit careful with pain, because if there's a reason for it to be there, we
Yeah.
don't want to switch it off. And my first experience was somebody had got some damage at the top of their spine and their neck. And if we'd have completely numbed all of that, they could have moved around freely and probably done some more damage. So it was giving them a control to go, let's turn it down, turn down the unnecessary, because we focus on it. If somebody said to me, oh, Steve, you've got a bad knee, and you're not going to be able to do this, and you're not going to be able to do that, then that draws all my attention to it. And it's difficult to measure. I read somewhere where they talked about we make it 80% worse. I think 80-20 comes into so many things in life, but that was a belief that by thinking about something and focusing on it, we make it 80% worse than it actually really is. So we can get rid of that 80%
Wow.
in hypnosis.
Yeah, that's very powerful, just by thinking about it. That's
Mm.
yeah, that's pretty incredible thinking, isn't it, really? And
Yeah,
I think that's the
yeah,
thing to be mindful of with health anxiety is, you know, we know that we have to get the all clear before we do anything else. We have to double check that, you know, we don't have anything underlying. So that's where we go and get the reassurance from the medical profession. And once we know that, then we're able to say, well, it is anxiety. And at that point, things like hypnotherapy, once we know whatever this thing is that we're worried about is caused by our minds, something like hypnotherapy is really good for us. So any pain that we have, we know it's you know, it's up here. So that's that line. I think as a health anxiety sufferer, you always worry, like, what happens if I'm ignoring something that is actually something that needs addressing? But
yes.
once you've done that, and once you've had that reassurance, then somebody like you can come in and really take away, you know, that pain, that thing that's been holding you back,
Yeah,
which is amazing.
yeah, it is. I mean, so I mean, thinking about health anxiety, I mean, it's worth saying. And I know we've maybe got some questions to answer a bit later, but it's worth saying, and this probably covers one of those, but that our mind's main job is to protect us. It's got two jobs. The subconscious mind, that inner part of the mind, is the bit that I'm interested in as a hypnotist. That's the automated bit, the creative bit, but its main job is to protect us. It's that part of your mind when if you're walking along the road and walk along the path and you're on your phone, walk along the sidewalk if we're from the States with a phone in our hands, we go to step out on the road and we hear a car horn, we don't generally look around. We don't sort of stay on the edge of the road and look around for, oh, is that car making a sound at me? Do I need to move? It's an instantaneous stepping back and
Yeah,
then worry about it. And that's the subconscious mind's job. But the belief from psychology is that it protects us in a way as if something's going to eat us. So even humiliation, embarrassment, even those thoughts, even the threat of that, the possibility, it might be, we see a video of somebody doing something, some embarrassing situation, and then a few days later, or even months later, we find ourselves in a similar situation. Our subconscious mind, running these protection scenarios all the time, goes, "Ooh, no, don't want to be here. This is dangerous. This is going to eat us," even though it isn't, and creates the fight or flight response, creates that anxiety. The adrenaline starts pumping, the digestive system stops because it wants to run away. And it might be a situation that you want to go through. It might be something actually that you want to enjoy. In the case of a
yeah,
sports person, it might be that competition, but it could be anything in life. And we don't know why we suddenly get that feeling because we don't remember that video, we don't remember that scenario or seeing something happen to somebody else. So creates that anxiety, creates that feeling. We usually battle through it and come out the other side and we're fine. But then it happens again and again because we go back into those situations. And there was an example I read about where somebody got severe anxiety, and I know it's not health related, but it shows the power of this. Going to the supermarket, they couldn't go to the supermarket. They couldn't even drive in the car park eventually. And I'm not big on therapies having to go back and look at initial sensitizing events because if something's put out there, we can put something else in there to deal with it, to replace it with the other side of the mind, which is the pleasure side. But this particular therapist went back and looked at it, and this particular person, the original event was they were in the queue at the supermarket waiting to pay, and their inner mind heard a phrase or a tone of voice or even a sound, a voice that took them back to an embarrassing situation at school, a humiliating
okay,
situation at school.
yeah,
But they didn't know that. They didn't register. It was just a little thing in the
yeah,
background that then gave them that horrible feeling at the till. Oh my goodness, what,
yeah,
paid, walked out fine. Next time, of course, now we're approaching the till, we're approaching the queue. That feeling comes back because the subconscious mind's going, last time we were here, there was that threat to
yeah,
us.
yeah,
That
yeah,
was that threat to life. And then it gets to the point, well, if you're still going to try and go there, let's bring that even earlier. So now we're at the doors and that feeling starts. Now we're at the entrance to the car park and that feeling starts over time. So
wow,
we don't know what caused it in the first place, but it can then be the same with the health side of it, that's something has happened. We've read something, and we do, don't we? Unfortunately, if Dr. Google comes involved because we've got something wrong with us, and we read all these things, so then we're looking for them. And if the mind is powerful enough to completely anesthetize somebody or to numb a whole area of a body while I'm having some surgery or some dental work, then how destructive can it be? How much can it focus
Absolutely.
on that negative side as well? And that's where
Yeah.
you've got to look at it. But the good
That's
news is we can change it. We can change it
yeah.
and give the mind better things to do. And I'm biased because I'm a hypnotist, and there are lots of other ways of doing this. But the hardest part is having to do this in a conscious level. It takes, the belief is anything between 28 and 45 days to get a new habit embedded. So to actually force yourself to think differently and
Yep.
to make that new thought a habit can take an awful long time to do and a lot of effort. So
Absolutely.
as a hypnotist, you get to the subconscious. Now it becomes much easier because we're free from that doubting part of the mind. If I said to anybody in the community, "I'll just close your eyes and imagine yourself not having that health anxiety," understandably, the conscious part of the mind will go, "What a load of rubbish. How can that ever work?" And it will never let it get past its own filter.
Yeah.
But once we relax that out the way, then the subconscious will generally accept whatever gets to it within reason. Tell the subconscious then to go, actually, let's start to think differently about this. Let's look at the reason why you're doing what you're doing and give you something better to do. And the changes start to happen quite quickly. And meditation, lots of talking therapies will do it as well. The key, though, certainly from my point of view, is to create a good emotion, because it's the emotions that start to get access to the subconscious. Often our earliest memories are times when we're emotional, unfortunately, usually a negative emotion, that embeds it. But by getting a positive emotion going, getting some emotions going in a positive way, will give a pathway to the subconscious. So there are other ways of doing it, but you've got to get past that bit that's going, you're going to
Yeah.
do what? I'm just going to pretend that I don't feel as bad and I'll be fine.
Yeah.
That's the hardest bit.
That's the battle, isn't it, between what you want to believe and what you're feeling that you're forced to believe, because it's the way you've always done it. And it's that constant battle. We all know the reality, and actually, when we worry about these things, that actually it's probably nothing. It's probably this, that, or the other. But then we have this little niggle on our shoulder that says, "What if? What if it's this?" And it's so easy to listen to that voice as opposed to the other voice. It's so easy to listen. That almost shouts louder, doesn't it? It's there
Yeah.
shouting, whereas the other voice is sort of whispering, and it's like, which do you go to? You're going to go to one that shouts. But if you make the whisper, if you tune into the whispers and like gradually listen, they do get louder. But you've really got to watch out for them, otherwise you're just going to get lost, and you're not going to pay attention. So
And it's that mind doing its job. And I think that's at a conscious level, probably the best lesson to learn is that actually it's doing what it should be doing. Because when you realize that, you can let it go to some degree, and you can then think about the other side of things, and you can realize that actually I can make things worse, but if I can make things worse by thinking about them, then actually I can make things better by thinking about them as well. And
yeah.
you're not stuck in feeling that way. Years ago, I don't know if I should tell this, but years ago, when it's only between you and I, isn't it? So no one else
No
will.
one's watching,
So,
it's fine.
so years and years ago, before I got into hypnosis, I wasn't a particularly good job. I've probably not been a very good employee anywhere, so I'm probably in the best place now to work for myself. But somebody said to me, they said, "Oh, you need to have a week or two off. Go to the doctors, tell them you're stressed, get upset, and the doctor will sign you off." And I did that. And by the end of the first week, I actually felt stressed because I was living this story
Yeah.
that I was telling people. If I got any phone calls from work, I was describing how I felt and all this business. Um, and it dawned on me that actually I was building that negative image because I was believing it. I was living it. I was starting. We are the story that we tell ourselves is the thing we often hear.
Absolutely.
So yeah, again, it was that power of the mind to bring that about. And I thought, hang on, I've got to stop this because I suddenly dawned on me that it was happening to me. I was getting those stress
So easily
symptoms. So
done. So I mean,
yeah,
I remember, being around a house full of people with COVID, and my family had COVID back in the day, and actually thinking, oh, have I got a sore throat or have I got a cough? So it's that, because you're around it, you're looking out for it, you're waiting for it to crop up on you, to
yeah,
bounce out. So the more you do that, the more you're going to find it.
yeah,
It's going to
yeah,
find you at
definitely.
some point, or you're going to find it either way.
Yeah. Yeah,
But yeah,
definitely.
amazing.
Yeah.
So these days, so your work involves helping all sorts of people achieve all sorts of things using the power of their mind by taking them back, tagging on some sort of positivity, some nice thought or emotion that they can then go right back and attribute that to. Is that how it works?
I mean, most of it is future paced. So most of it is, I'm not, I was going to say I'm not interested. That sounds a bit unfair, but in a way, I'm not interested in the initial event in most cases, because there's no benefit to go back and relive it. There's no benefit to look at it. It's interesting. I get why people do it, but it takes a whole session. I spoke to somebody years ago, and they said, "Oh, a friend of mine had hypnosis to stop smoking." That was the conversation, and by the tone of the voice what the next answer is going to be. I said, "How did they get on?" "Oh, it didn't work. Didn't work. A load of rubbish." And they talked about how this friend of theirs was taken back to the initial event that started them smoking. And it could be anything. It doesn't have to be smoking. It could have been anything, but this was for smoking. And they found themselves 11 years old in a lift, in an elevator, where their dad was kissing their auntie. And that was the traumatic event, which I get, okay, that's going to be traumatic. But it was a traumatic event that started them smoking at that age. But then the whole session's gone, and it's like, okay, I'll see you next week. And they come out with that and they've probably forgotten that at a conscious level, because their minds tried to get blocked it, got rid of it. So I'm not big on that. You hear lots of horror stories of people having to go back to initial sensitizing.
There's a lot of things you can dig up when you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can't change it. It's happened, but we accept that it's there, and let's give the mind something better to do. So in the case of smoking, if we stick to that, it could be going back to visit the younger self and go, something's going to encourage you to smoke. Look at what happens now for the next 40 years after that, and let's do something different instead. If it's rebellion, let's go and dye your hair instead, or something else. Because if you start this thing, and it sounds a bit weird, but then you only spend a few minutes there advising that younger self to do something different, and now we can move forward. But in the case of things like health anxiety, it's more about that, learning how the subconscious works, learning about its protection, and then looking forward. Because, like I said, if I said to you or anybody you're watching this, if I said to them, "Oh, imagine yourself without that health anxiety, imagine yourself where your mind is going to tell you if you need to know something, it will tell you, because it will. It's very powerful, very effective, that inner part of the mind." If I said that, you're going to go, "That's a load of rubbish." But once you get into that subconscious part of the mind, it suddenly becomes really easy, because you're free from that doubting, self-critical bit, to actually visualize and practice. And you see almost a light bulb. You see a smile come on somebody's face, because they go, "Actually, I can think how it would be to not have that thing. I can think how it would be to visualize success and visualize the achievement in things." So it all fits in with that performance thing, because even with some health things, say there's timeline therapies, there are parts therapies, there are all sorts of things within the hypnosis world, within the therapeutic world, that we can use. But most of it is actually, what's it going to look like to not have that thing? What's it going to look like to be able to get up in the morning and have a positive thought as that first thing of the day, to trust your mind and trust your body to let you know if there's something wrong, and to not be scrolling on Dr. Google every day, and how's it going to feel to do those things, or to not do that one, but how's it going to feel to do that success? And let's say consciously really hard to do, but in the subconscious really easy.
It's where the power is. Amazing. Yeah. And that's the thing, you have to imagine it. I'm a fond believer in manifestation. If we manifest things, we can make them happen, things like that. So visualization, all those things, like actually picturing it, like almost like it's there in front of you, has so many benefits, so much power involved. And people are still in the mindset of oh, this is a bit airy fairy, or whatever, because it's not the way we've been brought up or led to believe that we live a very sort of black and white life, don't we? We're told a certain thing, we don't learn any of this in school. It's not something they teach us, but actually massively powerful if you can master it, if you can have that within your life. They should. I really wish they would start to teach our children more of this stuff, because this is where if we're suffering from stress and anxiety, stuff like this is really helpful. things like
Yeah.
this can massively help you. But unfortunately, we're not there. I don't know if we ever will get there. But yeah, it's a really interesting train of thought.
Yeah, I
Amazing.
mean, it'd be amazing if we got there. It would absolutely. It's getting better. The word hypnosis scares some people. I get that, and sometimes we have to try and think about things in a different way. But yeah, it's visualizing, it's practicing. It's like learning anything. If you want to learn a language or something, you've got to practice it. If you want to learn to play golf, you've got to practice, practice, practice. So it's only the same. It's just teaching your mind to do something in a different way, and your body
Mm.
will respond. Because at the moment, particularly if it's an anxiety, you're in fight or flight. And if you're spending all your time in fight or flight, you're sleeping very well, your digestive system's not working. So already we've got issues, things like IBS and things can come about as a result of that. So we need to shift that. We need to turn that around quite quickly because you'll start to feel better. Just getting a good sleep, you'll start to feel better from it as well, because we can just change the way that you think. But I think as well, it's important to accept, in thinking of sleep, sometimes you'll get a bad sleep. It's okay for that to happen every so often, because of course we start to try and measure it, don't we? And we've got these things on our wrists that go,
Which are horrific,
oh
yeah.
yes, it's really, oh dear, you had a terrible sleep last night. Oh, suddenly my day falls apart
No.
because I actually thought I slept all right and I woke up feeling okay, but actually my external device is telling me that I didn't. And I get they've got their uses, absolutely. And I do look at my sleep as well, but it can have, if you let it, that negative effect on it. And then you start worrying about it because now
Yeah.
I'm going, I'm going to bed, I've got my watch set up and I've charged it up and I've done all these things. So yeah, it's if there was a magic wand, it would be great. There isn't. There is a bit of work to do. You mentioned before about believing, and there's something I was going to say about that. Just come back to me. You don't necessarily have to believe in hypnosis to get the results. You've got to want the change. A hypnotist, any hypnotist, no matter what they tell you, they can't make you do something against your will. It looks like that on stage. A stage hypnotist looks as though it's controlling people, but actually those people up there are doing the things they want to do. They want to be, an exhibitionist. They want to be showy. They want to do those things. So somebody's going to want to make the change. But some of mine, one particular client always comes to my mind, an anger management client I worked with, who literally said, don't believe in this, but I've got to do something. I'm going to end up getting arrested. And he'd been in the street fighting with his brother. There'd been all sorts of things going on. His wife was about to leave him. It was a really, really bad situation. But he was like, he literally said, don't believe in it, but I've got to do something.
Yeah.
So do you want to feel different? Yes, I do. That's all I need. And he did amazingly well from first session onwards, did really, really well. So yeah, you don't have to believe in it, but you've got to want to change and you've got to be able to follow the instructions. And I think that's probably the hardest thing around anxieties of any sort, because you get so used to being a certain way that actually it's quite scary to think, what's it going to be like when I'm not like that? And that's the hardest thing and probably one of my frustrations. I've been having a conversation with somebody over the last few weeks, and I know I can help them, but they're scared of the change because they've got so used to this thing being a certain way.
It's a comfort, it becomes a comfort blanket, definitely
Yeah,
becomes,
yeah,
what we're used to. And often we find if anxiety isn't there, we're like, where is it? We're like
yeah,
looking for it. Like,
yeah.
oh,
It's
I
been
don't feel
part of
all
my
right
life.
today. What's going on?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, it,
and
it
that,
becomes like what we know. It makes us feel
yeah,
happy, or not happy,
yeah,
but safe.
yeah, and it's that fear of it coming back. Is this too good to be true as well? And I get that and understand that as well, which is why when I work with somebody, I normally work over the course of a few sessions because we're really embedding that in and putting in
Yeah.
some anchors to make sure that actually it doesn't wear off. And when it's delivered properly, hypnosis, hypnotherapy, when it's delivered properly, we've put some good anchors in there. And those anchors can be something really simple. It can be every time I take a drink of tea, I'm going to get that euphoria back. I'm going to get that great feeling of freedom back. Oh,
Amazing.
pick up the teacup
Drink
and
a
it
lot
will
of
come back.
tea. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just a little something that you're always going to do every time I clean my teeth. Right, clean your teeth twice a day. Hopefully you do. Then we use that as the anchor because that then means it doesn't wear off. It stays with you then.
With you for life. That's it. Once you've
Yeah,
learnt that habit, that pattern, that's it. So
yeah.
every time you do that, it's with you. So how many sessions typically, for somebody with health anxiety, obviously there's different spectrums and levels, but generally how many sessions would you sort of recommend, if someone was new to this, I guess?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. 3 or 4 normally, depending on what we're working on. Either a package of 3, package of 4 sessions for therapeutic work. Sometimes a bit more when it's yeah, if we're linking other things in there, because there's often other things we might need to do some work on sleep. We might need to then do some work on the health anxiety, and it's just finding those quick wins. But generally, 3 to 4 sessions with results from session 1, because I want people to come back and go, that's working, that isn't. Okay, let's go after what isn't. Let's get that sorted out. Um, Rather than it be trying to do a white. When I first started out, I was, got an ego and all these other things. It's like, oh yeah, 1 session wonder. You only need to come to me for 1 session. But I knew that people weren't quite getting everything. They were
Yeah,
getting, they're getting things happening, which was great, and they were getting some results. But often when you bring one priority down, there are other things, underlying things that we need to
yeah.
address as well and bring those down. So it's then getting that full package of success.
That's it. And and this is so ingrained in us. It's happened over such a long period of time. It's going to take time to sort all of those little pieces of the jigsaw puzzle out, I guess, to pitch it all together.
Yeah,
It's going to take a little while.
yeah,
Amazing.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I think we had a couple of questions from the community. I don't know if you have them or I can read
I
them out.
have them.
Do you have
Yeah,
them?
no,
Could you?
yeah. I
Thank
mean, you can
you.
read them out if you wish, but I've got them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Shall I read it out?
Go on then. If you've got them
So the
there,
first one is I have been told that what you think is what you create, which is not a great thing to say to a health anxiety sufferer. And they are constantly telling themselves that they have cancer because that is what they are thinking. So how can they switch their mindset to stop themselves from coming back to that sort of worst case scenario?
um, of course, I'm going to say they need some hypnosis, because then we can get to that subconscious part of the mind and change that way of thinking. But at a conscious level, it comes back to what we were saying before. It Accepting the subconscious is doing its job will start to alleviate a lot of that. To Rather than it be, actually, I'm drawing on my attention to that thing, being able to go, I know that you're doing your job. I know that, because when if we're surrounded by those sorts of things, if some people work in that the environment where they're caring for people who are terminally ill and or unwell in any way, of course your mind's going to think about it. It's going to be thinking about it all the time and watching out for those things. But by realizing it, by noticing it, then that will start to alleviate things. And don't think of it as a big mountain to climb. Just think of little things. Just think of those little positive things. In the case of health anxiety, it would be picking up on where the good health is, and using that to get a good feeling will start again to replace the bad feeling. But I think, yeah, the realization that it's actually okay for that to happen. Yes, we want something else to happen, but thank you very much
Yeah.
for protecting me. Almost having that conversation. Yeah, thank you very much for protecting me. There's there are, I mentioned about parts therapy. Parts therapy is where, as a hypnotist and other therapies use parts as well, but we talk about ourselves in parts. Wish I could go and do that thing, but part of me is frightened. Part of me is anxious. Part of me, wish I could lose some weight, but part of me loves cream cakes. It's So we often think of ourselves in parts. So it's been able to look at that part and go, thank you very much. I know you're doing your job, but you're probably doing it a bit too well at the moment, because
Yeah.
actually these things are very unlikely to happen to me. Let me know if there's something important to notice. But now let's give you something better to do. Let's think about actually the good things, all the good health that's going on
I really
around
like
me.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
I
and
really
and
like
obviously, yeah, and nutrition and all these other things, of course, come into it, because again, that can create a good feeling. Okay, let's put some good stuff in there, some good food in there, because and let's go to that part of your mind and go, actually, here's some nice things. Here's some things that will help you do your job in a better way. You can work on areas that you need to protect me on, and we less focus on that. So yeah,
that.
and that's the sort of thing we do in hypnosis, but you can do it even at conscious level. But it's
Yeah, I
looking
really
for
like
the
that sort of,
emotions.
yeah, thanking your brain. Thank you for,
Mm.
protecting me, to give me that mindset, to let me look at that outlook. Actually, it's really not very helpful in the long term, but yeah, thank you for trying to protect me. And now here's the reality. The reality is this. So it's like reframing it, giving it a different label.
Yeah,
Yeah, I really
but
like that.
but but being reassured that your mind will tell you if you do need to know something.
Yeah.
Because again, otherwise you then, I think you said near the beginning, are you then worried that your mind's that you don't know if there's something wrong? Because there may be. And so, okay, let's be realistic. Let's look at this in a reassuring way. I did have, I worked with some, I do a thing, I used to do little group sessions a few years ago now, where I'd use like a healing light. So there'd be a group of people and I'd get them all to visualize a healing light moving around them. And at one of the sessions, I said, you can either focus on an area, and if you've got a bad shoulder, let that healing light work on there, feel the warmth, feel the energy, feel it energizing, repairing and replacing cells, all those sorts of words. And I think at one point I said something about you might notice if your mind needs it to, it will hover over a certain area. And somebody came up to me at the end and said, kept finding the light was going back to a certain point in my body. And I said, well, it's worth getting it looked at. And they did, and there was something wrong. And they got it fixed. It wasn't a massive thing, but their mind knew. They didn't know. They had no symptoms. So you can trust your mind to tell you if it needs to. Once you've got rid of that anxious feeling, of course, because then you've got that clarity and you've got that relaxed mind.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's the hard part, isn't it? Knowing the difference, knowing how to spot the difference between those two. That's often what causes the problem. But amazing, yeah. Thank you for that. I really do like that, the answer to that, because it just gives us that, takes the control back a bit and just says to us, thank you for doing that. Not helpful, but let's look at this other aspect. And there was another question as well, just while we are here. So, how do you know if hypnotherapy is working for you?
That's a good question. I looked at that one and I thought, how can you do that? But I suppose I'm always looking for measurables when I'm working with people as much as possible. And sometimes you can't. Sometimes there isn't a measurable. But if you dig deep enough, there could be. It could be, have you been out of the house today compared to yesterday? It could be, have you been able to eat certain things maybe? So I'm looking for things that are measurable. So that way, that something's happening, that something's changing. But one thing to keep in mind with hypnotherapy is, and I can't remember where I read this, so I can't give them credit for it, but somebody described it as the most, let me get this right way around, the most underwhelming therapy with overwhelming results, because it feels normal to do things differently.
Yeah.
So that can make it quite hard to measure sometimes. Yeah. It can be the smoker that feels as though they've never been a smoker. They know they have, but it feels as though I've never smoked. I've got no urge to pick up a cigarette. I've got no urge. It can be the person who's not been able to go to the shops for that fear of their body reacting in a certain way, needing the toilet or something like that. And they've just felt inspired to go to the shop, and they've been to the shop and come back and they haven't thought any more of it.
They've always done it, yeah.
Yeah, so it can be quite hard to measure. I worked at somebody years ago when I was doing home visits. I mean, before COVID and before all these things came along, and it was on a phobia. She got a phobia of dogs and cats, and she was going to get married. She'd had this phobia for I think it was about 15 years, something like that. Just couldn't be near dogs or cats, and she's getting married, going to a country where lots of dogs and cats will roam around. So she was quite fearful of it. She couldn't go to the park and all these things. And we did the first session. I went to the second session. And the first question is, how are you getting on? Oh, the weather's not been very good, so I've not really been out. Nobody's been in with a guide dog or anything at work, so I've not had a chance to check it really. And I said, okay, so nothing at all. And then she sort of thought, you could see she was thinking, and she said, actually, I walked past somebody with a dog the other day in the subway under the road. And I said, okay. I said, would you have done that before? Oh, no. I'd have turned around, I'd have run back, I'd have gone and hidden in the shop where I could see them coming out. And once I knew they'd come out, I'd go again, and it might happen again. And sometimes it might be 3 or 4 times. So, okay. I said, okay, great. Perfect. I said, but anything else? And she said, oh, actually, I stroked a cat the other day. And I was like, whoa, hang on a minute.
Wow, yeah, huge progress.
Tell me more about that. What happens? She said, well, I went to a friend's house and I was telling them what I'd have done, the hypnosis, what we were doing, and their children just one of their children picked the cat up and put it on my knee, and I just sat there and stroked it. And I said, well, would you have done that before? She said, well, no, I've never been to the house before because they've got a cat.
Yeah.
So I know again, it's not relevant to the conversation, but it's that example of it felt really normal for her to just be around dogs and cats. So it can be a difficult one to measure. I'm keen to always try and find a measurable one, and even to the point of and some people sort of think this is probably not the right approach to have, but asking the question at the start of a session, how will you know this session's worked? What's going to be different between now and when we see each other in 2 weeks' time, so that you could say to me, that worked, that went
Yeah.
really well. So I want to try and find the measurables. Some people argue that sort of almost leading into doubt, but it isn't, because it's going, what will work? What do you want to change? What do we need to focus on? Because as soon as you get those small wins, then the big wins come, because the mind goes, well, look what we did just from that first
That's
session.
it. Yeah.
Now
They all
now
build.
let's really get into it. Yeah, let's really get into it. Let's really make some changes.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to see the progress, because it is, like you say, small steps, small step, small
Mm,
step. And actually, it's
yeah,
not till you take a step back and go, hang on a minute, like I've straightened the cat, whatever it was, like I've actually done that. But at the time, it's the little things that don't look like a big step.
yeah,
We often find that with health anxiety when we're moving forward, like the small steps of progress are actually, to me, like massive things. When I say, wow, you've achieved that, but to somebody that's going through it, it just seems like the norm, so all of these things can add in and become that bigger picture. And the more you
yeah,
do it, the more parts of that phobia, fear you tackle, the easier it is to move forward, move beyond
yeah,
it.
yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Incremental changes.
Amazing. So if people would like to work with you, how can they get in touch with you? Where can they find you?
Okay, so I mean, if you Google Steve Woods hypnotist, or I'm at Steve Hypnosis on most social media sites as well, so that should find me. My main website is very heavily golf related, because I've got a company that is hypnosis for golf, FORE golf, because that's one of my main areas that I work in. Doing a lot of work with business at the moment as well, but you can still get in contact with me, and I'll send you over a link, Amy, as well. So if anybody, I have some free downloads. One is golf, obviously. One is business related, 12 months golf. But one of them that might be useful for people is sleep. So it's designed for you to listen to as you go to sleep. A lot of people use
Amazing.
it when I'm working one to one with somebody on sleep. I always give them recording as well, but the recording on its own will work quite effectively. So I just have it playing at the side of the bed, ideally without headphones, because you're going to go to sleep. The aim is to get you use hypnosis, get you into a nice relaxed state, get you into sleep, and also means that your mind is more settled for getting you back into sleep should something wake you as well. Accepting again, something might wake me when you reach my age. Unfortunately, we have to go to the toilet in the night and things. So, accepting that's going to happen again, rather than they, oh no, I've woken up now. Actually, I wake up, I go and deal with it, come back to bed, and those feelings come back again as well. So yeah, I'll send you the link through
That
for
would be
that, so people can go and
amazing.
down. I mean, then download all three if they want to, if they happen
Yes,
to be into
please. And
golf and business as well.
people that can't, that are struggling with golf as well. But sleep massively affects us, and
Hmm,
when we know that when we don't sleep, we are that much more anxious, because
yeah,
we're just not able to deal with it. It all just everything becomes too much.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
lack of sleep does heighten anxiety. So by being able to sleep properly, it really does get to the root cause. Help that core of the problem. So thank you. That would be massively appreciated. I'm sure everybody here would absolutely love to be able to get hold of that. So thank you very much, Steve. And yeah, I've
Welcome.
loved chatting. Thank you. It's been really interesting.
Great.
And I'm open to being hypnotized at any other point. I've never said never again. I really enjoyed my time, and it's amazing what is available to us, and the power, like we said, the power of our mind, what we can do, and how we can utilize it to bring us to those better places, to give us that better outcome, and over looking at things in a different way.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you for having me on, and yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Take care, and see you
Thank you.
soon. Thanks
Thanks.
then. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.